NVIDIA designs some of the world's most powerful AI chips. Apple designs the processors inside its devices. AMD designs powerful processors for computers and data centers. But many of the world's most advanced chips have one thing in common. They need to be manufactured by TSMC. And this is where the story becomes extraordinary. TSMC doesn't sell smartphones. It doesn't create the world's most famous AI models. And it doesn't design most of the chips it manufactures. Instead, TSMC built a business around making the dreams of other technology companies physically possible. Think of it this way. A technology company designs a chip. But building a factory capable of producing that chip can cost billions of dollars. So instead of building its own factory, the company can hire TSMC. TSMC takes the design, manufactures millions of microscopic components, and delivers finished chips back to the customer. That is the basic idea behind the world's most important chip manufacturer. But the simplicity of the idea hides an enormous amount of complexity, because the smaller the chip becomes, the harder it is to manufacture. TSMC's advantage begins with specialization. It doesn't need to design smartphones or compete with its customers. Its entire business is focused on one incredibly difficult job, making advanced chips correctly. And this creates a powerful cycle. More customers create more revenue. More revenue allows TSMC to invest in better factories. Better factories attract more advanced chip designers, and more advanced customers create even more demand. The cycle keeps getting stronger, but this strategy only works if customers trust you, because these designs can represent years of research and billions of dollars in investment. A manufacturing mistake could destroy an entire production run. A tiny defect can make a chip worthless. So manufacturing experience becomes incredibly valuable. The more chips TSMC manufactures, the more experience it gains. The more experience it gains, the better its manufacturing becomes. And the better it becomes, the more valuable it is to customers. That is how a manufacturing company can become extremely difficult to replace. The semiconductor industry was changing. A new kind of chip company was beginning to emerge. These companies could design processors without owning a factory. That changed the economics of innovation. A brilliant engineer no longer needed billions of dollars to build a factory before building a business. They could bring the idea. TSMC could bring the factory. And together, they could create a chip. This created an entirely new business ecosystem. But TSMC had to make one promise more important than everything else. Your design is yours. TSMC would manufacture it, but never compete with it. That neutrality was incredibly powerful. If TSMC designed its own competing chips, some customers might walk away. So TSMC made the unusual decision to remain behind the scenes. It would not need the most famous brand. It needed the most advanced manufacturing process. And every generation of technology made that process more difficult. The smaller the features became, the more expensive and precise the factories had to be. By the time the world understood how valuable advanced chip manufacturing had become, TSMC had already spent decades mastering it. Then artificial intelligence created a demand unlike anything the semiconductor industry had ever seen. AI systems needed enormous amounts of computing power, and that computing power required specialized chips. NVIDIA had spent decades designing them, but designing an AI chip was only half the battle. Someone still had to manufacture it, and that someone was TSMC. This created a powerful partnership between the company designing the AI engines and the company capable of producing them. But the scale of the demand was extraordinary. Cloud companies wanted more chips. AI startups wanted more chips. and the world's largest technology companies wanted more chips. But the number of factories capable of producing the most advanced chips remained extremely limited. This is where the economics became extraordinary. AI companies invested in computing power. Cloud providers bought more hardware. Chip designers created more powerful processors. And TSMC manufactured the physical technology that made the entire system possible. The invisible factory had become one of the most important places in the AI economy. By now, TSMC was no longer simply a semiconductor company. It had become part of the infrastructure of modern life. The chips it manufactured were buried inside the systems people used every day. But this created a new problem. So much of the world's most advanced chip manufacturing was concentrated in one place, Taiwan. That made TSMC extraordinarily valuable, but it also made the company strategically sensitive. Governments began to realize that advanced chips were not just technology. They were economic power. They were technological power. And increasingly, they were geopolitical power. The world wanted more factories. But building a new factory was not like building an ordinary factory. You needed billions in capital, highly specialized engineers, specialized equipment, and years of experience. A building could be constructed in a few years, but the knowledge required to operate it could take decades to build. TSMC's success created a paradox. The more essential the company became, the more the world wanted alternatives. Governments wanted more semiconductor factories on their own soil. Companies wanted more manufacturing options, and the world wanted to reduce its dependence on a single region. But copying TSMC's factories was not enough. The real advantage was the ecosystem around them, the engineers, the suppliers, the knowledge accumulated over decades, and the trust of the world's most demanding technology companies. That is much harder to rebuild than a building. And this is the hidden lesson of TSMC. The most powerful businesses are not always the ones selling the product everyone sees. Sometimes, the greatest power belongs to the company controlling the bottleneck, the place everyone must pass through. TSMC did not need to own every technology company. It only needed to become essential to all of them. That strategy transformed a manufacturing company into a global power structure. But there is one final warning. A competitive advantage can become a vulnerability when the entire world depends on it. The lesson is simple. In business, the biggest fortunes are often built not by owning the most visible product, but by becoming the invisible system that everyone else cannot live without.